listening, those who are listening, and to share with others, Lord. And we ask you, Lord, as we turn over this next section to a pastor, that you may fill him with your Holy Spirit, empower him with words from on high to feel and feed every person, every sound, every ear listening this evening. Bless us and bring joy and happiness to every heart, every home, every person this Sabbath evening, a joy only you can give. We ask all these mercies in Jesus' holy and precious name, for Christ's sake. Amen. Pastor?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I want to welcome everyone as well to our Vespers this evening as we wrap up this series that we have been focusing on the Sabbath. Before I do, I want to say congratulations to, I learned that there are a few of our siblings who are planning to get baptized very soon. And so I want to say praise the Lord, congratulations. And you couldn't make a better decision than that. The decision to turn your life over to Jesus fully. Just a reminder that the baptism is an outward act that represents an inward cleansing. You have met Jesus, you have fallen in love with Jesus. We are so happy for that. And you want to publicly display that you met him. He has washed you, he has cleansed you, and he has given you a new start on life. And anyone, 2 Corinthians 5:17, anyone be in Christ, he is a new creature, a new creation. All things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. So God bless you on your decision to give your life over to Jesus. Amen. All right, at this time, I am just going to like to share, I'll share my screen so you can follow what we're doing. Okay, much of this will be a review. In fact, the whole series has been geared towards those who are exposed to the details of the Sabbath for the first time, and also to reinforce what most of us know already. And it was to equip us all to share, to witness. And so there is always the evangelistic part of what we do, because we are reminded that every true disciple is born into the kingdom of God as a missionary. Now, this evening, forget about the big terms there, the Sabbath. This is just for me to know what I'm talking about, the Sabbath in apocalyptic eschatology. We are looking mainly at some prophecies. And most of you have been attending Prophecy Made Simple by Pastor Bowen. So some of this, again, will just be review for you. So follow me quickly, follow me closely, rather, as we go through a little quickly, since it'll be review for you. And you have any questions, feel free at the end to let me know anything you just to go over again. We'll be happy to do that. Now, I take you, first of all, to Daniel chapter 2, and everyone is acquainted with this prophecy in Daniel chapter 2. The dream of Nebuchadnezzar, which Daniel interpreted for him, the head of gold representing Babylon, okay? And they have the time period there when Babylon reigned up to 539 BC. After the head of gold was the chest and arms of silver, represented Medo-Persia, and that was from 539 to about 331 BC, or BC. Then there was the belly and thighs of brass, or bronze, as some modern versions say, and that represented Greece from about 331 BC to about 168. And after that's all BC. And after that was the legs of iron, okay, representing Rome from 168 BC to 476 AD. Okay, and after that, from 476 AD, was the feet of iron and clay, represented the divided kingdom of Europe from 476 right down to present day. And as the preachers like to say, and as Bern like to say, we are very much maybe right down on the toenails of this image. Okay. All right, that's Daniel chapter 2. Now keep that as a backdrop to what we're going to talk about. There is a parallel prophecy in Daniel chapter 7 that was given to him. This one was given to Daniel now. Okay. And so they picture him here, the artist picture him here sleeping, and he had this dream. First it was there was a lion with eagle's wings. And afterwards the wings fell off and it stood on his feet like a man. And by the way, this is a parallel prophecy, paralleling Daniel chapter 2. So here we have, this represents Babylon, right? The lion here, okay? After the lion, there was the bear that came up on one side, representing was two parts of this kingdom, Medo-Persia, coming up on one side was stronger, the Persian side was stronger than the Mede side, and there were three ribs in its mouth that is believed to be three nations that were conquered by Medo-Persia. So after the bear came the leopard, okay, they had the wings of a fowl, and the leopard, it had four heads, which represented, this was Greece, and the first it represented the speed with which it conquered the world, represented the fight of Alexander the Great, and then the four heads represented the division of Alexander's empire after he died. After that, though, came this nondescript beast, as we call it. All right, he couldn't find a name for it. There was nothing in nature that quite corresponded to this. It had the claws of, they had iron claws and teeth. And then as he looked, it was very strong, powerful. It had 10 horns, okay, 10 horns. And in Daniel chapter 7, and I hope you can turn your Bibles there because we're going to look at a few verses from there, because this is narrowing down to what we want to talk about today. We are still in the series in the Sabbath. We haven't forgotten that. So just keep this in mind, okay? Keep this in mind. So we are going, we're looking at Daniel chapter 7 here. And then after that, as Daniel said, he kept looking. And out in the midst of those horns, there came another horn. Okay, another horn. And this horn, it says, was different from the others, Daniel chapter 7. All right, very different from the others. And it said it had the eyes and the mouth of a man. Okay, eyes and mouth of a man. In fact, let me find that quickly so we read Daniel chapter 7 for us. It says, and I'm looking here at verse 7. It says, and after that in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, terrifying and frightening, very powerful, had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. So that represented Rome, as you know, it was very powerful and ruled for a very long time. Then now it comes to the part, while I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them. And three of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Okay, boastfully. Then there was a little parenthetical part of a judgment scene that is described there. Verse 11 says, and I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and his body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. All right, so Daniel didn't understand what it was, and then he had the explanation, the interpretation of it. I want to skip over the earth because our focus is on this little horn. So we're going to look from verse 19, Daniel chapter 7, from verse 19. Let me get the King James Version since most folk are acquainted with the King James Version there. Verse 19, it said, and I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. We are in verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all other kingdoms, etc. All right, and it explains much of what we already went over. But I want us to look at verse 25. Verse 25. All right, if I let's pick up 24 and 25. I hope you're with me. Daniel chapter 7, verses 24 and 25. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall work the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. All right. So this is where we are going with. This is where we are focusing this evening. So we are focused on the little horn. All right, the little horn. Remember, this might be a review for you, but remember one of our objectives. It is to arm you so that you can share with others. Let's identify the little horn. And the characteristics of the little horn are, 1, it rose out of the fourth beast. Okay, Daniel 7, verses 8 and 24. It appeared after the 10 horns in verse 24. It was little at first, but became greater than its fellows. Right? It was to put down 3 kings, verse 8 and 24. It had eyes, had like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking greater things, and it spoke words against the Most High. In other words, we're going to find it blaspheming. Verse 25, it was to wear out the saints of the Most High. In other words, it was to effect persecution on God's people. Then it was to think to change the times and the law. And you underscore this one because this is our target here, all right? Think to change the times and laws. And it was allotted special powers for a time, 2 times, and half a time. So these are the characteristics, the description of the little horn. So let's go quickly now, and I'm going to explain this. So I'm going to take you a little bit of history now, okay? So let's follow this a little closely. Just after the times of the apostles, as the work began to grow, there were 5 main centers of Christianity. These were Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Jerusalem, and Rome. They had the heaviest concentrations of Christians at that time, the end of the 1st century into the 2nd century AD. Okay? All right, so note these here. These were the main centers of Christianity: Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Jerusalem, and Rome. Now, of all of these, if you do the geography of them, all of these four were mainly on the eastern part of the empire, and Rome was in the west. If you have gone to anywhere in Europe, West Europe, if you have gone to Italy, visit Rome, you know that's in the west, Western Europe. The other parts were all in the east. That's very significant. And note that for a particular reason, because of the significance of the Church of Rome. And let me give you a little bit of history of how this church arose. Remember, they were all Christian churches. Just keep that in mind. They're all Christian churches. Now, as I touched on, I said Rome was the main Christian city in the West. Okay, it was a little typo there. It was the largest and the wealthiest. Okay, right, because it was in the capital. Okay, it was the wealthiest. What happened was that after Constantine, who we touched on the last week, after he became emperor and he made Christianity the state religion, as it were, there were a number of things began happening. Last week we saw where there were elements here. Constantine was an astute politician, and he wanted to have a syncretism between the paganism and Christianity. One of the things that happened was that pagans had their heroes, and the Christians, now to imitate the pagans, said, hey, we have our heroes too. And so they began to look back at the saints as the heroes. Soon they began to exhume sometimes the tombs of the saints. All right, and they used to take the dust, have the little cloth that will wrap up this holy dust in of these saints, and at this time relics became very popular. After Constantine became emperor, his mother came up with this interesting story where she went to Jerusalem, traveled to Jerusalem, and she claimed that she found the cross of Christ. And from that cross, she took that cross of Christ back over to Rome. Okay, and they began to take little splinters from the cross, thousands of those splinters. As one historian said, there would be so many splinters that they could have made many crosses for all these splinters that they took. And people take these splinters and wrap them up in cloth. They soon became big business because they would sell these, okay, because they were considered holy relics. And there were all kinds of relics. People began discovering all kinds of relics. And they had relics like the embers from the burning bush from Moses. And my favorite, there were drops of the virgin milk. Okay, that was also a relic. So people who are being very superstitious, and people came up with these very interesting things, and they began to sell these relics because the relics were considered like charms. And many of them were from Rome. So Rome became very wealthy, all right, for other reasons as well. Okay, as we're going to see, as if you study church history, you would come across that. So Rome, I'm focusing on Rome a little here. So it was in the West, and it was the main part in the West. It was the largest and the wealthiest. In fact, there were more Christians in Rome. There was one time at the end of the century, it was estimated there were over 100,000 Christians in Rome. You read where Paul, right into the church, there were converts even from Caesar's household. All right, the emperor's household, who became Christians in Rome, because we are told, even though there were periods of persecution, the blood of the Christians were seed for the gospel. And so the gospel grew. Now, one of the important things, let me just throw in here, the devil recognized that he couldn't beat the Christians by persecuting them, because as they dispersed, they carried the gospel and it were throughout the empire. And so you can't beat them, you join them. And that was the strategy the devil employed here. All right. So the Patriarch of Rome was given the title Pope. How he got this title Pope was that they were considered, since Rome was considered the headquarters of the empire, right, at that time, and since he was in Rome. By the way, in 330, however, Constantine moved the capital from Rome over to in the west, he went over to the east in Constantinople. And he named that city there after him. It was Byzantine at first. He named it after him Constantinople. It is Istanbul today in Turkey, okay? And so he shifted the city, the headquarters, the seat of the empire over there. Okay? That created a power vacuum in the West. And that power vacuum was filled by the Church of Rome. Also, there was the theory of apostolic succession. And let me mention that very quickly, just a review again for you. The theory of apostolic succession says that the first pope was Peter, St. Peter, and Peter was given the keys for the kingdom. He passed the keys on to the next pope. Okay, and the next pope kept passing the keys on, so that the Bishop of Rome, being the father, the papa, and in Latin, the word papa word means pope, means the papa. He was the father of them all. And so he got the title as the Pope of Rome, the father of all the Christians and the father of all the other patriarchs. So with that, he felt he got the keys. Now, this is why you would see the emblem of the papacy of the Church of Rome is always these keys, okay, the keys. If you visit Rome again, you're going to there is apart from St. Peter's Basilica, which is in the heart of the city, there is the Cathedral of St. Paul outside the city. And inside that cathedral, you have of Paul outside the city, and you go there, they have like photos of all the popes, starting from Peter as the first pope, coming right down to the ages, because of this belief in apostolic succession. I already touched on the power vacuum that was created, not just after 330 when Constantine moved the seat of the empire, but also what happened was that the barbaric tribes or the Germanic tribes began attacking the empire. And they began attacking the western part of the empire because the emperor was over in the east. And these are tribes, these barbaric tribes, they began attacking the empire until finally in 476 AD, they destroyed the political part, the western part of the Roman Empire. It was destroyed by these barbaric tribes. By the way, they were called barbaric tribes because they spoke neither Greek nor Latin. And so they were called barbarians. So when they destroyed that, the empire itself in the West, it lost its control. It was divided now into these 10 different divisions. And that was the 10 toes of the kingdom, or the 10 horns represented there by the beast. Okay, so there were these 10 tribes that were destroyed. I won't go into the names of all of them and so on, but most of the countries in Western Europe today came out of these 10 tribes, including the Anglo-Saxons, out of which we get English. There were the Franks, the Heruli, and all of these, okay, these 10. Now, afterwards, it was in the midst of that now, with these 10 tribes, in the midst of these 10, there was emerging now the Church of Rome that became a power. In fact, we are told when the barbaric tribe was going to attack, they had planned to burn the city of Rome. Gregory, I think it was Leo the Great, right, Pope Leo the Great, he went out to the gate to the city, met these folk, and appealed to them to save the city of Rome. And they listened to him and they turned back and they didn't destroy the city. So with this now, this added stature to the Pope, okay, of Rome, right? So for all of these reasons, the Church of Rome was establishing itself as being very strong, very powerful. And the Pope now reached a point where he was not only the leader of the church, but it was considered a state, just as it is today, okay, became very powerful. To the point where what began happening was that the Church of Rome saw itself as the defender of Christianity against heresies. Around that time, Arianism was becoming popular. Arianism was started from this guy Arius. And I wouldn't have time to go into all the history behind it in what we call the Christological controversies. But Arius was propagating that Jesus was a created being and not one who was coexistent with the Father throughout eternity. And there was this big controversy. There was a council that was called, and this council was called by Constantine. There was the Council of Nicaea, all right? And one of the things with the Council of Nicaea was that they came up with this Nicene Creed. And they said Arius, they rejected Arius' theory. There were, however, some of these kingdoms that believed in Arius. Well, however, as the Church of Rome became very strong, they uprooted, they attacked first the Heruli. Okay, well, one of these kingdoms destroyed it. Later on, they attacked Justinian around 530, 534 AD. He attacked the Vandals and destroyed them. Well, then by 538, note that by 538, the Ostrogoths were virtually eliminated. And so the three kingdoms that were uprooted by the Church of Rome, these three, the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. What I'm showing here is that exactly.
After much prayer and contemplation.
All right. Exactly what was said in when we looked at the 8 points that
this is August 2nd, 2021. The headline reads, the U.S. passes major inoculation milestone. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. All right. All we're doing is I'm showing you where the church now became very powerful. All right. Now there was very early where it referred itself as the Catholic Church. The word Catholic means universal. Okay, universal. And so it was, as it was spreading, the Church of Rome became a universal church. Now, over in the East, there was also the Eastern Orthodox Church that rivaled the Church of Rome. But we want to go into that part of the history right now, maybe some other time. All right. The point we're making is that this church became very powerful. And the Pope of Rome became the strong man, very leader, very powerful, above all the other churches, all the other Christian churches. Now, the prophecy says in Daniel 7:25, he shall speak great words against the Most High, shall rule the sins of the Most High. They shall be given into his hand, all right, until time and times and the dividing of time. I'm just going to go very quickly. Time probably means a year. For example, in Daniel chapter 4, you read about Nebuchadnezzar, where the prophecy says, let 7 times pass over him. 7 times means 7 years pass over him. So it's time, year, times, that's double time, 2 years, and the dividing of time, which would be half a year. So it's a prophetic period of 3.5 years. 3.5 years times 3 times 12 plus 6 gives you 42 months. An average month carries 30 days. So you times 42 times 30, that gives you 1,260 days. In Revelation chapter 12, verse 6, there is a prophecy which we don't have time to look at, which describes the woman, the church in the wilderness, which was persecuted for this time period, 1,260 days. In a prophecy, a day is equivalent to a year. Numbers 14:6, Ezekiel 4:6, which gives us then a period of 1,260 years. 1,260 years was a period when this little horn, if Daniel chapter 7, was to rule, all right? And that time period began from 538 AD, when Emperor Justinian officially made the Pope of Rome, or the Bishop of Rome, the head of all the churches. It was in 538 when the last of the 3 kingdoms was destroyed, all right? The Ostrogoths were destroyed. So from that time, 538, brethren, the Church of Rome became very strong, very powerful. You can read their history to the point where they control kings. You must have heard the story of this king who defied the Pope. And the Pope read him out, excommunicated him. And the fear of excommunication, by the belief there was that if you're excommunicated by the church, then you were cut off from heaven. This king went there when he recognized he was excommunicated. He went there to appease the wrath of the Pope. The Pope kept him out in the cold of winter for 3 days and 3 nights, barefoot and barehead, out in the cold there, and then admitted him in. And the Pope bragged where he was in the power to humble kings. Okay, so it was very powerful during that period of time. And we don't have time to go into all the details of that. You would see from 538, 1798, let me just take you to end what happened in 1798. It was during the French Revolution when General Berthier went there, okay, and Napoleon sent under him, went there, captured the Pope, okay, took him into captivity. He died. That led to the breaking up of the church. The aim was they thought they could dismantle the church. But there was another prophecy in the Revelation chapter 13, which described the deadly wound that the beast received. But the prophecy was that this wound was healed. And okay, and the world wondered after the beast. But we're not going to go in that part. I'm sure Pastor Bowen must have touched that, or he will touch it as you continue looking at prophecy made simple. The part I want to get at, however, was this a part of the prophecy, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, which says, he shall think to change times and laws. And that is the part I want us to focus on as we wrap up. There, last week I touched on AD 321. In fact, it was Mark 7, 321 AD, when Constantine gave this Sunday law. But that Sunday law was more a secular law. Okay, it didn't have much religious connotations. He said that, come and let people rest on the venerable day of the sun. However, in AD 538, there was what we call the 28th canon of the Third Council of Orleans in France. And this was a law given by the church. And a part of it says on Sunday that let agricultural labor ought to be laid aside in order that people may not be prevented from attending church. Okay, so this here now was coming from the church, okay, itself, the law. It's under law. Now, the church makes no bones about it. If you go through Roman Catholic literature, there was a lot of literature that talks about them making the change. For example, around the year 1400, Petrus the Ancarano, he made this statement that he says the Pope can modify divine law since his power is not of man, but of God. And he acts in the place of God upon earth with the fullest power of binding and loosing his sheep. I just give you the reference there as well for it. Okay. Also, there was what we call this pseudepigrapha, a lot of writings that emerged during the Middle Ages. And these writings have no basis in history, but there were some writings that were concocted, which said that that Jesus rather gave permission for the church to change the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. You read in the Catechism where they have a question answer, where they would ask which day is the Sabbath. They would say, yes, that is the Sabbath. And why do we observe Sabbath Sunday? They said that the church, we have got the authority to change it. And they make no bones about it. Now, the thing with that is that you have got to be careful. You cannot, in arguing with you cannot convince a Catholic based on Bible alone. In fact, you can show from the Bible alone that there is no evidence of change for the Sabbath. A Catholic will tell you, well, look, we do not believe only in the Bible, we also believe in the Bible and traditions. That is the writings of the church fathers, we put that on par with the Bible. And so if you may want to quote that the Bible says, they will say, well, okay, yes, the Bible says, but the traditions of the fathers, the writings of the church fathers say, and we put that on par because they got the authority of the church based on the keys of the kingdom that was given to the church to make those changes. And since it's authorized by the church, it is gospel truth on par with the Bible. So the word is pseudepigraphy, what is writings? And there is the authority that the church claimed it had to make that change from the Sabbath to Sunday. So I went over quite a lot in a short time, showing that the Bible, however, God did prophesy that this little horn that will come out from Rome, that was different from the others. It was not merely a political power, but it was also a religio-political power that was very different from all those that went before it because of this ambidextrous approach to governing. And by the way, as I hinted earlier, it is the same today. We have an ambassador to Italy. We have an ambassador to the Vatican. Even though the Vatican is in Rome, it's in Italy, but the Vatican is a political power as well as a religious power. When the Pope visits a country, he visits it as a head of the church and also the head of a state. Okay, and so the prophecy was very clear in Daniel chapter 7 that this little horn was going to think to change times and laws. One translation of that says, it shall change laws that deal with time. And if you look at the 10 commandments, brethren, the only commandment there that deals with time is the Sabbath commandment. And that one was divided, okay, changed deliberately by the little horn, which we have defined and described here tonight. So may God bless us. I'm going to close off on this point and I'll leave the room. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask at this time? And by the way, I just touched the surface here. There's so much more to the history. There's so much more we can talk about. Any questions?
Hello?
Go ahead there, Janet.
There's a, good evening. There's a screen that you had there with the horns, explaining the horns.
Yes.
I was trying to screenshot it, but I missed it. Could you, by any chance, put it back for me?
Oh, sure, my dear. Which one was it you want?
The one that it was mentioned something about all the little horns.
Oh, I want the little horn.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's go back and get that for you there. This one?
No, I didn't see that one, but yes, I could use this one too. I could look at it. It was like in the print.
All right. Was it this one?
Just before you get to times and the times and laws.
Well, I had only it's not so much not a picture, it was just
no, it's not a picture, just the light.
Okay. So
that's it.
Oh, this one.
Let me take off my hand, take down my hand. Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Oh.
No. Wait, hold on. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Identifying the little horn. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome there.
Beautiful presentation. God bless.
Okay. Thanks. You too there.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other question? Any on this?
Hi, Pastor. Could you do the math for me again with the 30?
Oh, the math. The math.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. So let me go to the math. I know I went that over a little quickly. All right, let's go to that screen on the math. All right. I'll go a little slower for us. The math here is Daniel 7:25. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Okay, time and times and the dividing of time. Now, time is 1 year. And you can go back, you can read that in Daniel chapter 4, when Nebuchadnezzar had that dream of that big tree. And there came the voice of the watcher said, okay, cut it down, put a band around it, let 7 times pass over it. So 7 times there means 7 years. So time is 1 year. Times is double time, which is 2 years. The dividing of time is half a year. So it's 3.5 years. Now, this here is mentioned in other parts of the Bible. For example, I did quote Revelation 12:6. And you can read Revelation 13:5 as well, where it is used different terms, but the same expression. Now, if it's 3.5 years, which is prophetic language, we take 3.5 years, we've converted to months. It was 42 months because 1 year, 12 months, times 3 is 36, half, which would be 6, 36 plus 6 is 42, okay? We changed that back now. The standard month in Bible times was 30 days. Okay, the average is 30 days. So if we multiply 42 months by 30, okay, 3 2s is 6, 3 4s is 12, we get 1,260 days. What we do, we applied the year for a day principle. The year for a day principle, we read about that in Numbers 14:6, where God was saying here, I'm going to appoint you 1 day for a year. That's the root for this was when they had to, the spies had gone 40 days to spout the land, and they were to go back in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 day for a year. The year for a day principle is not new to Adventism. Many Bible expositors over the years have used this day for a year principle to explain Bible prophecies. So also in Ezekiel 4:6, we read that there, where there was a lie, it was a lie on his thing 40 days. He said, I'm giving you 1 day for a year. So 1,260 days will then give us 1,260 years. That's just a very significant time period. If you read go back to Revelation chapter 12 on the vision of the woman representing the church, okay, giving birth. And then the dragon spewing water out of his mouth, looking to drown the woman, and the earth opened up and absorbed all the water. And she remained in the wilderness for, I think he mentioned there, 42 months. The same time period. That there also represents this period of persecution that the church experienced. And as you know, under the name of wiping out heresy, the church during this period killed lots of Christians. In fact, some folk estimated about 50 million Christians, those who opposed Rome, died during this time. I may have mentioned my wife and I, we were in a Reformation tour in 2017. We went among the Waldenses in northern Italy there. We went to a cave where they were hiding from the Romans because they were persecuted because they were opposing the Church of Rome. And we were in this cave with that Sabbath morning, and they gave us the history. A descendant of the Waldenses was with us as a tour guide. And he shared the experience where the Romans, they discovered the Waldensians hiding in this cave. And one time they came and they locked the cave and they put gasoline down there, set it on fire and killed, I can't remember how many, but a whole lot of Christians who were Waldensians who were hiding in that cave. So during that period of time, he wear out the saints of the Most High. Persecution was very strong. Read Fox Books of Martyrs, for example, that describe some of the grotesque and heinous form of persecution. You can visit the place where Huss was burnt at the stake, and Jerome, okay, and all of that. So they claimed that they had the right to do that because they had the keys to the kingdom and they had to burn out the heretics during that time. But it was a fulfillment of the prophecy, Daniel 7:25, of the little horn persecuting, bear out the saints of God for time and times and the dividing of time.
Thank you, Pastor. I was not 100% sure what the 30 represented. It's 30 days. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Average for a month.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome there. All right. Any other question before we turn it over to Elder Ogis to close us off? All right. Well, I had planned this would be the last in the series. Although I am tempted to do one more, I'll let you know, mainly in terms of the mark of the beast, since it's Sabbath related. And it might be appropriate as well for us to do this because people have been asking questions. Some of our brethren, our Sunday brethren, very religious people are linking the present vaccine to the mark of the beast. And it may be good if we can maybe clear that up. Okay, that we understand first what the Bible means by the beast. And we're going to understand what it means by the beast before we can understand the mark of the beast. And we're going to see there's no connection to any vaccine with the mark of the beast. So maybe we'll do one more session to wrap up the whole series on the Sabbath. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Elogis, close us off, please.
Yes, they said all good things must come to an end. That's on earth, but not in heaven. So we at this point, we want to thank Pastor for that very detailed illustration. It was brief, but loaded. And you can always contact the pastor if you want additional information and follow up. So at this time, we want to sing one more song, and then we're going to close off. Anyone has a choice of a final Sabbath song before we close up? If not, I'll have to select one and sing it. And
595.
Sabbath day of rest.
no,
Holy Sabbath day of rest.
we sang that already. But if you want to have it again,
Oh, okay.
number 95. Somebody said
day of rest and gladness.
595.
oh, 595.
Yes,
Yeah.
my brother.
Let's go to 595 and see what
We
that's.
sang a day of rest and gladness already too.
You sang that already. 595. Did you say 595?
Another 6 days work is done.
What number is that?
I'm not sure.
All right, let's go. I think another 6 days work is done. Another Sabbath has begun. Is that in a old hymnal or new hymnal?
It's probably in the old,
That's in the old
I'm not
hymnal.
sure about them.
Another 6 days work is done. Okay, let's go with that one. Another 6 days work is done. Another Sabbath has begun. Return my soul, enjoy the rest, improve the day that God has blessed. Come, bless the Lord, who love us blind, so sweet the rest to every man. Blessed unto us